We'll now call this regular workshop meeting of the Jacksonville City Council to order. We have a copy of the proposed agenda for tonight's meeting at your places, and I would entertain a motion at this time to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so our first item tonight is the gateway signage update.
Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much. This evening, we do have two items, one that has been on your agenda a number of times. And the reason why is because it's important, but also Jason Smith, as our landscape architect, has been one of the primary people working on these gateway signs. Unfortunately, Jason had an emergency today in his family, so we have the very handsome and talented Michael who's going to fill in. What that actually means is Michael's going to sit here and Deanna's going to give out all the details.
He's going to be the clicker.
He's going to be the clicker. That's exactly right. But at this time, we would like to discuss with you gateway signages. As you know, probably a year ago, we began to talk about the improvements and how they would be funded. The programs that you're going to see tonight are going to be funded through the Department of Transportation grants. So while we may have additional gateway signs that may take city funding, these signs are specifically to be funded by DOT. Now, we all know the financial situation of the DOT, so we cannot guarantee that these will be started tomorrow morning or even a month from now. But when funding does become available, if you bless these signs, this is what we'd like to proceed with. So, Deanna, please.
Well, I'm actually going to step in first. So, Mayor, Council, thank you so much for allowing us to speak with you tonight about the gateway signs. And my role in this is basically to talk to you about where we've been and where we're at. And Deanna will tell us, hopefully, potentially where we have an opportunity to go. So, as you know, or if you're not aware, there are 4 gateway entrances into Jacksonville. You can see right here on Highway 17 South, basically in front of the old gas station, Exxon station. That would be one location. Highway 17 North off of Empire Boulevard, just past Piney Green Road would be the second. Gun Branch Road, where the Duke Power Energy site is, right before Lauredale, and around Midway Park on Highway 24 would be the 4th area. You can see the signs, and some of the challenges, what I really wanted to talk to you about tonight is our gateway signs currently are about 25 to even 35 years old. They are decent looking signs, as you can see, made with wooden columns, a lot of concrete. Some of the challenges we have as a staff maintaining these signs is, if you can kind of look a little deeper into it, there's grooves on that board, and that is not wood. That is kind of like I'm not sure what it's called, but it's more like a particle. So painting, cleaning, those are tedious items for us. You can imagine with some of the detail on the sign, how long it takes to paint a sign like that. That takes some time. Our goal has been and continues to be, every 4 years, we try and redo the signs, and we rotate that through and throughout. So that takes a lot of labor time and manpower. These signs, when put up, were our first signs in the city, as far as I know, and I think they've set a good precedent for us. But moving forward, we have some ideas for you that kind of standardizes who Jacksonville is, and hopefully where we're going. And I would ask you to bear in mind the importance of the gateway signs they are the first impression to the city of Jacksonville. We only get one opportunity for that, and we want to make the best out of that chance when given the opportunity. Deanna?
Thank you. So as Michael stated, these signs have served us well over the last 25, 35 years. And so with the new branding, the new seal that we're unveiled, we are now looking at something very similar to what was previously approved for the Beirut Memorial signage. And so what we are proposing is a curved sign. In this particular example, it's 55 feet in length. You're looking at a height of 6 feet 75 inches high. The column with the seal on it is 8 feet 9 inches. It has that same similar concrete cap. In this picture, it's shown as gray, but it'll be white. We have metal lettering, just like the Beirut. That lettering that's shown is 28 inches tall. And so the concept is similar to what we've done with the bathroom concept, where we've taken a model for the bathrooms and we've kind of picked it up and placed it. Well, we envision that this would be site specific. So any of the constraints that we see, we'll just modify it. And by modify it, we're meaning more of the length of the sign, not necessarily the height of it. And so we envision that the sign would have a backdrop of some evergreens. And then this is one example that we've been looking at. This is an aerial view. And as you can see, we've got the curved brick sign. We've got the column. And that column has a city seal on it, which will be about 3 feet in diameter. Again, that material will be very similar to what you see at the Freedom Fountain. We also have a concrete band. This concrete band serves dual purposes. It allows us to do elevation changes, and it also helps with maintaining the landscaping for edging, etc. And then also we have perennials. And so it's the same footprint landscaping that you've seen and have previously approved through all of our landscaping initiatives throughout the city. And so where we're at right now is we've got a concept that we've been working with the team over the last several months, and we're at the point now where we're just wanting to seek some concurrence with City Council to see if we're on the right path, if there's some changes that we need to identify or make. Again, it will be site specific, so there are some areas where we're kind of constrained with topography, etc. And we the city has grown over the last 25 years, and so as we continue to grow, just because the 4 locations that Michael identified served us well at that point, that might not be the right place for us moving forward. And so as staff continues to identify locations, we'll bring that back before City Council to get your concurrence and approval before any steps are made. But at this time, we obviously we'll address any questions that you might have or concerns.
Go back to the picture, please. One thing, these are not intended to be where the city limits is. I know that as we grow out 17 towards New Bern, the city limits will, as it has over the last several years, it continues to move outward. So it's not our intention to say this is going to be where the city limits is. It'd be very difficult to pick this sign up and move it, 100 yards every time we have an annexation. But they are intended to be the welcome to Jacksonville sign. And as you can see, it does mirror what you have approved to be placed down at the Beirut Memorial Grove. So the 2 signs that we're proposing at this time, though, are at what location?
So we've got, through NCDOT, through the construction of the Piney Green project, we have money that has been identified for us to use within those project limits. And so what we are proposing, DOT through the widening at Country Club and Piney Green at that intersection, there used to be a gas station. The gas station got abandoned. Well, DOT is giving the property to the city. Although that hasn't happened yet, we've been working on it for a year. So as soon as the property is ours, our intention is to put a gateway sign at that location. And then also at Empire and Marine, we have an existing gateway sign, as you saw. And what we are proposing is to actually move it from one side of the road to the other side of the road, still on the Empire car dealership side of Marine, but it gives us more exposure. We've had some difficulties in the past with our neighbor with the landscaping, and so this allows that kind of an open footprint as you're coming into city to clearly see that signage. So those are the 2 locations that we would be proposing at this time.
And to clarify one other point before we have general input, there is to be no city funding, no TDA funding, no general fund money. This is totally funded by the DOT grant.
What was the
That was
initial
a question, Deanna?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I thought you made it sound like a statement. Yes. We have, as of right now, we have close to $500,000. And you're probably asking, well, that's a lot of money for 2 signs. But if you might recall, at the intersection at Country Club and Piney Green, there's a significant elevation drop. And so we're going to have to bring in, I think it was 6 to 7 feet of fill just to get us up to where the signage is either at or just above the back of curb. So there will be a substantial amount of money just to get us to be a viable project. And so this is a great opportunity for us to get some pretty signs at DOT's funding.
How would that sign be oriented at Country Club and
Actually, it's what we're proposing is what you see here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. And what were the initial dimensions you said on that first sign that you showed us?
So the sign that you're seeing here is 55 feet in length. It's a huge sign,
Yeah.
55 feet in length. The column is 8 feet 9 inches. And so we'll have some uplighting it's just like Beirut Memorial. We'll have some uplighting up front. And so it'll be visible in the evenings. It's that reflective characteristics from the lettering themselves.
I have a question, Richard, and maybe it's for you or everybody, actually. You know, I know this is paid by DOT, but is there an opportunity to look at potentially, I think at some point we need to talk about adding our destination logo on some sort of signage. You know, Goldsboro's doing it, many other areas are utilizing their destination logo. And, you know, like for TDA, I mean, we're spending lots of money promoting our destination logo to get people here and come here. Is there a possibility to look at if at some point maybe trying to add that logo to some of our signage?
If council would like to do that, I mean, obviously there's no TDA money in this. Glenn and I talked about it earlier. It was my understanding when I talked to Glenn earlier that there was TDA money in it. If there is TDA money in it, I think it's appropriate to put the destination on there. If you wanted to put it even without TDA money, you could certainly take the column that's on the left and mirror it on the right, where it is more, for lack of a better term, almost like a goalpost arrangement. That's something that could be added. If you did that, then you would put that destination down at that end. What you could also do is leave the current design and move the word City of Jacksonville a little to what I'm gonna say the screen's left, and simply put the destination
Small.
at a proper space towards the end. Of the two, I would actually recommend the second over having the dual column. I think
Because I don't
that,
think it needs to be as prominent as our city logo. I just feel like if we're working together and I see other areas that are really utilizing their destination logos as part of an overall marketing theme, I just feel like we should at least explore the opportunity. You know, I'm not suggesting, you know, we have to. It's just something we should.
Is there any way to get like some concepts of how that?
Of course, yes, sir.
you know, again, I want to make sure, if I may address from the, I think the concept would then be to slide this over approximately here. At this end, put the destination logo. I don't think that you actually want to have dual columns. I think that changes the look significantly.
And I don't even think it needs to be, you know, huge. I just so that identifier starts becoming part of the whole vision thing as part of a marketing theme. We can see how, but I love this. I think this will look great, you know.
If I may address the size of it, as with anything, it needs to be big enough to be seen without being too big to dominate. You don't want to put anything up there that when the traveling public goes by, they say, what is that at the end of it? So what we can do, if you like the concept, we would like your authority to move forward now to actual final design. We can bring back the placement of the word City of Jacksonville and the placement of the destination decal, sign, whatever the right word is. And you can have a look at that if that's comfortable with you. The one thing that we do want to stress though is that these are currently going to be funded by the DOT. If that plan changes, we will have to come back to you because these signs are intended to be built without any general fund money, without any TDA money.
Are there any restrictions from DOT about what has to be on that sign?
We've not asked, do you know?
So since it's a signage, it has to go through Raleigh for concurrence and approval, but this is similar to other signs that they have approved, so we're not anticipating any hiccups or issues.
I mean, adding other things. to it.
No, I don't think they're gonna have an issue with that.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Michael,
How long do you
did-
expect this thing to last? How long will this last? Give me some idea. of
You're
duration.
up, Michael.
You say those other ones are 25 and 30
I
years
would think
old?
they would last that long. I mean, they're gonna be much easier for us to clean. For example, we'll be able to take a pressure washer out there.
A lot
clean-
easier than what you
A
got now,
lot
right?
easier for us to maintain these signs, a whole lot easier. So and I think the way these are built, when the existing signs are damaged, you can imagine that's not easy to repair it. There's a, taking those signs up, we have to get other departments involved. It's just not easy. I think these letters are individual and we could even do the individual, so if the C on city got damaged, we would be able to just address that one particular letter instead of city of Jacksonville as a whole.
What would the city decal be made of?
It'll be, what we envision is exactly what is at Freedom Fountain.
and that is what?
It's a cast
I think
plaque.
it's, yeah.
It's a bronze cast.
So that'd be easier to keep up too.
And those are aluminum letters like you're proposing for the gardens. And so, yeah, that'll last a long, long, long time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This time I'd like to ask Jeremy and Ryan to come up for our next item.
Hey. Feel it really? Yeah, you're.
After my initial comments, I'm also going to ask Brian to come up and join us too. So, Council, as you will recall, the state law allows you to have the extraterritorial jurisdiction for zoning. For a long period of time, the county did not have a zoning ordinance. But as you'll recall from the first joint land use study, or JLUS, one of the recommendations to protect the training mission of the base and to ensure compatibility was that the county commission should consider having zoning. And over the years, they have implemented zoning. Because of that, the question has continually risen, does the city actually need to have any ETJ? I think you're gonna find there is justification for having some, but as the county continues to manage their zoning program, we have more and more conflicts with residents who say, I'm not in the city, I'm in a developed subdivision, I pay county taxes, I don't pay city taxes, so why is the city out here trying to regulate my property? And I think that's a valid point. The other point I would make is this. Remember, we do not collect taxes on any of the ETJ property. We do charge building permit fees and certain other fees. So when we have fire department inspectors out looking at a commercial building, they are spending city taxpayer money on a non-city piece of property. So one of the discussions that we want to have this evening is to show you reductions, but also to get your philosophy about the ETJ in general. Mr. Carter, I'm sure, is going to join in this because he is actively involved in many of the issues with the ETJ, especially with code enforcement. So at this time, I'm going to relinquish my seat. Brian, if you would please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Woodruff. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I think that was a very good introduction that Dr. Woodruff gave, and thank you for Brian for joining me and Jeremy here at the table. Code enforcement, CJ, Jason Larson, was very instrumental in the staff discussions that we've had, as well as Mr. Wally Hanson from the public services side. So to kind of give the mayor and council and our citizens and residents that may be watching on G10, what is extraterritorial jurisdiction, ETJ for short? It's, we have the legal ability to impose our zoning and planning regulations beyond the city corporate limits. So that's identified in the North Carolina general statutes that we're allowed to do this. These areas are zoned and developed in accordance with our city regulations. So our Unified Development Ordinance is applicable, which includes regulations that we'll dive into here in a few moments. And one of the things that it allows us to do is ensure compatible land uses and city design requirements with the neighboring areas here in the city. So the map that's before you now is the blue is identified as our corporate limits, and the green area is our current extraterritorial jurisdiction. To quote David Owens at the School of Government, the way an area immediately outside a city is developed can change the character of neighborhoods, increase the demand for city services, change the traffic patterns, and affect the surrounding property values. So those are kind of some reasons why we should have an ETJ. As you all are familiar, the MPO boundary actually goes beyond even the ETJ. And that's so that the transportation components can be addressed. So in accordance with the general statutes, Article 19, in 1959, the standard was created to allow us to have an ETJ. So it actually tried to be implemented back in the late 1800s unsuccessfully. But in 1959, the general statute was adopted to allow the city to have an ETJ. And the size that the ETJ can encompass is based on the city's population size. So city of Jacksonville size, we can go out 3 miles. There's a caveat to that. We can go out 1 mile. It would require county commissioner approval to go beyond the 1 mile. And it's also hinged on the county not enforcing zoning, subdivision type controls. So, and the reason why that's important is the county is now doing those things, which means any ETJ expansion in the future, should we want to do this, would require county approval. Just like we tried to do back in 2001, 2002, 2003. Before the county started enforcing zoning, we went to the county commissioners and said, we want to go out 3 miles, the maximum allotment allowed. The county commissioners were not in favor of doing that. So in 2003, we extended the ETJ up to 1 mile, the maximum amount we could possibly go. Now, in some cases, we didn't go out the full mile because we try to follow identifiable features such as right-of-way, creeks, streams, power lines. So in some cases, we didn't go out the full 1 mile. So that was the last ETJ extension that the city participated in, was in 2003. Now, over the recent years with the annexation laws that have changed and the fact that the county has established some zoning, you'll see here that we've had 4 reductions, and 2 of which were very substantial. And the last one in 2017, where we removed 2,700 parcels, at that point we were really focused on keeping the corridors, and we really tried to get rid of all the developed subdivisions where we don't see any changes occurring, but wanted to keep the corridor areas, as I mentioned, and large vacant tracts of land. So recently we had a request from a citizen, and that's kind of what spawned, there's actually a couple of things that have spawned our most recent discussions and dialogue that we've had. We've had citizens request. We've had some code enforcement cases that have come up, which led us to discuss, well, let's consider another removal of the ETJ areas. And staff collectively, we looked at several things. The citizens' request, so what area was that? The code enforcement cases, the services that we provide. So for example, the fire department goes to the ETJ, they perform their annual inspections, and there's a fee for that. Zoning, the code enforcement, the zoning enforcement within the ETJ. The MPO was involved with the discussions, and we looked at, okay, what about planned corridor projects, the planned or changes or needs that are happening within our corridors. We looked at, okay, where does the city have infrastructure versus ONWASA? Because if there's ONWASA services, you can assume that there's not going to be any annexation requests, they'll go to ONWASA. There is an exception to that, and that is in the southwest area where we have a city lift station for sewer. There's ONWASA water. So in that particular case, you'll see in the maps, we're not proposing to remove that area. But in the Piney Green 24 area, where you have ONWASA water and sewer, and not city sewer past the shopping center, we're proposing to kind of remove that area. And I'll get into the proposed removals here in just a moment. I mentioned already that we looked at, okay, well, following roads, creeks, streams, power lines, and that's just so that, you know, code enforcement staff, the citizens, we can say, yep, that's where our ETJ stops. There's the power line that runs right through that property. That's our boundary. Some additional considerations that we looked at, and I think it's kind of fitting that we had the conversation on the gateway signages. When you're coming into the city of Jacksonville, you know, do we want to preserve those areas and the need to do that? We also looked at vacant tracts of land. If you have a lot of vacant tracts of land or large vacant tracts of land or underutilized tracts of land, you know, that kind of weighed into our decision on, do we keep this area, do we look to remove it so that we can manage the growth? And then there's another area where there may be some remnants of subdivisions where we kept 20 or 30 lots of a subdivision just because it was close to the corridor, and yet the rest of the subdivision's not part of the ETJ. So within the subdivision, part of it's in, part of it's out. And additional considerations is the regulation and enforcement of ordinances. So, you know, the city zoning, the city building inspections, the city fire review and codes, things like our landscaping and signage requirements and the building design standards and our buffering to make sure that our residents and businesses are buffered from those that are right on the fringe to protect them. The ability to require transportation impact analysis to make sure that a development is mitigating any negative aspects of traffic. The city's MSSD, or Manual of Specifications of Standards and Designs, that's basically our water and sewer requirements and road construction standards versus, say, a DOT standard. And some other factors that the city council needs to consider, that staff considers. You know, you'll hear this argument in a lot of cases that well, I don't get to vote for the city council, so I don't have representation, you know, by the elected officials. Now, we do have an ETJ representative on our Board of Adjustment and on the planning board, which is mandated by the statute, but that's still an argument that we hear in a lot of cases. We also hear that, well, you're gonna tax me. Well, that's actually not true. We don't tax, yet we're expending city services in these areas, even though it's limited. So no police and fire protection necessarily, although there is occasional mutual aid requests where we may venture out. Vested rights. I know one of the things, and this is just more for council's knowledge purposes, that, you know, we know that a future annexation may come up. One of the key things to remember with this is that if a developer gets a development approved in the county, they get a vested right. Just like anybody that gets a development approval from the city now, if we relinquish this area, the county's gonna have to live with that development approval unless the developer wants to go to the county and say, hey, I want to fall underneath the county's development standards. So what I'm trying to get at here with this is that you could have a development plan be approved by the county, meeting the county's standards, not the city, and they have a vested right to build that. They could then come to the city and say, hey, can you please annex us? And that'll be a city council decision, but basically you would be, if you annex the property, if they have a vested right already given by the county, they would have the legal authority to construct that. Now, you may not choose to annex the property. That would certainly be a choice that the city council could consider. But you could have that situation in the future if we relinquish the ETJ or parts of it. They could get that vested right and then ask for annexation. But anybody can request annexation now or in the future, whether they're in our ETJ or not. Sometimes that's a misnomer. That they have to be in our ETJ first. They don't. They could request annexation without being in our ETJ currently. Routine fire inspections. So every year we're sending troops out to perform inspections, not getting any tax dollars for for those services. There are fees, but, and Brian may get to that in a little bit, is that there may not be any recouping. It may be a negative venture. So we may charge a fee, but it probably doesn't necessarily cover the cost. So our next steps are to receive city council direction, and we think that there's basically 4 options. And one would be to do nothing, leave it as it is. One would be to reduce it as shown, or a surgical method. And I'll show you the maps here in just a moment. Reduce other, and that may be, well, we think you need to take more out of this area than what we're proposing, or possibly take less. Another option would be to eliminate 100% of the ETJ. And that's something that has been floated by the legislature, but they have not acted on that. So I think that they are still enough people across the state that sees there's still some value in keeping parts of the ETJ. And depending on what the decision of city council is, we've already had some dialogue with the county that we were going to have this discussion with the council. And depending on the direction that you send us, we will work closely with the county to let them know, hey, we're not going to do anything, or we're going to move forward and establish that timeline so that they can transition over to the county area like we've done in all of the other reductions. And even the expansion, we worked with them when we expanded the ETJ. So to make sure that we maintain those relationships with the county, we'll work with them one way or the other, depending on what the decision is. And regardless of the decision, as long as we have some ETJ, so I guess this would be, and Jason may need to correct me, or Lily, Richard, correct me if I'm wrong, unless we go with the last bullet, which is eliminate 100% of the ETJ, you'll see some future adjustments that they will bring forward as it relates to code enforcement in the ETJ if we keep some ETJ. So regardless of what we do tonight, as long as we have some ETJ, there will be some future amendments that you will see, and they'll dive into that in more detail in the future. So the proposed map, and as I stated earlier, this is a result of multiple departments getting together and trying to analyze the map. The areas, we looked at the entire area. So on the southwest area, basically this line is really close to the boundary by the food line in front of the air station. So everything south of that in the red would be removed under our proposal, if that's the direction you send us on. You'll see that there's 3 areas around the creeks where we're just trying to clean up the boundary, so I wouldn't pay attention to the water features as much, but that's why the boundary is red, is that we're just trying to get the GIS layers shored up. There's the difference between the proposed and the alternate will focus on the Gum Branch area. So under this proposal, we would keep the corridor along Gum Branch Road out to Summersill School Road. You would basically cut off the part that's on Summersill Road and then the part that is near the Deerfield subdivision, but not along the main corridor. The next area would be, there's half of a cul-de-sac.
Can you explain that real quick again? So if we're on Gum Branch,
So the proposal here,
on this one,
the ETJ would stay along the Gum Branch corridor
all the way down.
all the way to its current position, which is Summersill
This is
School Road.
internal.
This would be off of the main road. So we kept, in 2017, we kept the large undeveloped tract. So this piece here is a large undeveloped tract on Summersill School Road,
On the road itself.
on Summersill School Road itself. So we would take that area off. Likewise, this is some farmland. I think the Time Warner or Spectrum tower that's in Deerfield, that's still in, that would come off under this proposal. The next proposal, basically we would take it and we would cut it off. That's the only change is this area. We would cut it off basically at the boundary between the Duke Energy and Lauredale. That would be the new dividing line. And then across the street, we would keep the church, and everything north of that would come out. So that's the difference between the proposed and the proposed alternate.
The alternate takes the Gum Branch away.
The alternate takes Gum Branch
Corridor.
corridor away.
Okay, thank
The
you.
proposed would keep that corridor.
Okay.
And the reason why we're kind of in the air is that you've already got a lot of parcels that are already developed. The Dollar General's there, the strip center's there, the Shell station, the gas station, it's already there. And that's kind of why it's still a corridor, so we're saying maybe we keep it. And then the argument to take it out is that it's basically already developed. Now, it could be
Yeah,
redeveloped.
it could be redeveloped.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
There's also some city infrastructure within that area that goes all the way out to Rock Creek. There is a small section of one of the subdivisions, I believe, that's served by city water. But that's really not the focal point there. So going back to the proposal, there's half of a cul-de-sac next to the Carolina Forest subdivision that is coming out, as well as, I believe that's a track next to, oh, that's all on that side. So part of a cul-de-sac. So if you're on one side of the cul-de-sac, you're in the county zoning. If you're on the other side, you're in the cities. So we're proposing to carve the rest of that
Is
cul-de-sac
that the
out.
one to the right?
That's this one here.
Okay.
It's Carolina Forest, you said.
It's actually off of Ramsey. I think it's Totem or Chief Court. Totem.
Okay.
It's on the Ramsey side, across the street?
It's a cul-de-sac. No, it's on the Carolina Forest side of
Okay.
Ramsey.
But it's not
But
as
it's
part.
not part of
not
Carolina
Carolina
Forest.
Forest, okay, thank you.
But I mean, you literally have county on one side of the road, city on
City
the
on
other.
the
So we said, let's cut that area out and let that be completely within the county's jurisdiction. So the next area, the Drummer Kellum Road, we're proposing to leave that, and the primary reason for this is you've got city infrastructure, city lift stations, some recent development that's come in, some larger vacant tracts of land, and some pieces that could be assembled for development purposes. Plus, we've identified that, our growth area is out 17 North, where the Stevenson Hendrick Toyota, the development that's happened there at the intersection of Piney Green and 17. So that's why you don't see any red within that area. We did analyze that, but we're proposing to leave it under our proposal. So the next,
reason for that is you may anticipate a future voluntary annexation
that is correct. So we want to make sure that it is developed.
to our standard.
That's correct.
Under our standards, not vested, as you were saying, vested on the county
Right.
part.
So the next piece is the White Oak High School, the large tracks that are on, is that Wolf Swamp? Halltown Road. We kept it last time, even though we got rid of the subdivision right here. I know there's a lot of red. Glenn, can you clear the map for me there? We got rid of the Country Club Hills subdivision, I believe is what it's called. And we kept it because it was large tracks. But with this proposal, we would eliminate it, just because we don't see that as a growth corridor at the time. Get rid of the White Oak High School, the back lot behind White Oak High School, turn that over to the county. We would still have the Patriot Park area here that would stay annexed, obviously.
Okay.
We would keep this area. This is residential property now. This is one of the old airstrips. I remember from a kid, there's an airstrip right there back in the day across from White Oak High
That's on
School.
Piney Green.
It is off of Piney Green. So they're large, undeveloped tracts of land, and we have a sewer lift station right there. And we've had some recent development approvals here at Hemlock and Piney Green. Continuing further down Piney Green Road, we looked at removing this area.
What is that?
Basically on either side of Piney Green Road, where you're gonna have on Wausau water and sewer. So we looked at removing that area as well, because we don't foresee the annexation happening within this area. We would keep the area that's right here along the Green, along Carver, to the railroad trestle, because we've got the city here at the
Right up to the corner.
shopping center.
That's where Simplified.
Yes.
All that's it.
And the railroad trestle, and then we've got the secondary connection into Hunters Creek through an extension of Carver, and propose to keep that in. And then we would eliminate the red area on 24 to roughly where the Enon Baptist Church, I believe is the name of it, is located.
Okay, by the gas station.
So that's basically the proposal that staff has come up with, trimming the areas, with the one alternate being, do we keep the Gum Branch corridor or do we make it a clean break right there at the Duke Energy compound, Lauredale, and the church across the street?
I'm not in favor of the alternate.
Yeah.
And also, the only question I like what you're proposing. The only concern I have is right there, because I can't tell by the map how close you are to Food Line.
On Piney Green Road?
Yeah.
So the blue area is the Food Line. It is already annexed. So we would get rid of the stuff behind it and the high
Right, but
school.
wasn't there a potential voluntary annexation petition for that area for a multi-development?
That was the Patriot Park, right?
That Patriot Park is still in the blue, so that would stay in. There's a little bit of
Make sure
blue.
that it's not a potential voluntary annexation piece.
I believe that we have it cut out to where that piece nearest the shopping center would be preserved.
That's my only concern, because I know that we were approached on several occasions for that to be developed.
But keep in mind, why do they come to the city? Because you have sewer
Sewer and services.
services.
Yeah.
And so whether they're in the ETJ or they're outside the ETJ, they will come to the city if they need those two things.
Right, but the main issue that Ryan is talking about is that once you turn it over to the county zoning, that it can be built to a different standard, thus not serving the public safety aspect of it at the same level. So we just need to be sure that that is.
And I believe that we've looked out for your concerns there as it relates to right there at the Food Line. But I mean, we certainly can look at that and send that out. We can get a better map that shows you a close-up of this
And
area.
if you've done the homework, then fine. That's the only thing that I see based on what you're showing us today.
Did the county ever adopt a specifications manual similar to what we have?
They have zoning, they've got rules associated with that.
Streets.
Streets, they don't, that's DOT standards. So they won't have the curb and gutter section necessarily like the cities. It would be whatever the DOT standard is.
Usually open ditches, usually. I'm with Mike. Would like to hang on to the Gum Branch corridor, but the Patriot Park and the Food Line, I just see, to me, I guess that's city services right there, city sewer in that area, and would not have a chance for Onwassa necessarily in the near future.
I believe that the sewer basins, and Wally can come up and answer, the sewer basins have been analyzed. So he can come speak to that issue.
I just don't like isolating that Patriot Park. I mean, I just think I'd like to keep some connection there to the Food Line Shopping Center.
Be nicer to see a closer
Yeah.
view of what that is.
Well, you're not cutting that out there, right?
Yeah, we are cutting it out right now.
Right now, yeah, I think the scale is misleading. I don't think you actually are.
Sure. To answer your question about sewer, we have an agreement with Onwassa regarding the Poplar Branch pump station, and it specifically spells out the areas the city will serve and the areas that Onwassa would serve. And the vacant tracks along Piney Green Road in that area, we're talking about the Patriot Park, closer to Halltown Road, we have, I don't know that first right of refusal is the right word, but they have to come to us to get service. And that would come out of our portion of Poplar Branch. The area that we've taken out closest to Piney Green Road is actually White Oak High School. And then the area behind that was a large tract that's behind the subdivision that's on the left-hand side of Halltown Road. So if you look on the map.
Patriot Park though, behind the school?
So Patriot Park is to the left of the school.
Right, but
I mean, I'm
thought it
sorry, to
went-
the right of the
I
school.
thought it went around to the back of it.
No.
Mr. Koenig did not exercise all of his options
Okay,
on that.
that's what I'm
At
thinking.
one time, he had most of it tied up in options all the way out to Waters Road.
Right, all the way back and around,
But the only portion, and at that time, that portion was not in the ETJ.
okay.
So when, and I think only the front portion of Patriot Park was in the ETJ at that time. So Mr. Koenig actually annexed all of Patriot Park that he purchased. And then he had options on the rest, and whether he still has those or not, I don't know.
I mean, if you
But
guys
the
are
portion we're
comfortable-
talking about is primarily the left side of Halltown Road. So there's some,
So, and remember I mentioned one of the things that we had is we've had some requests from one or two owners in that area. And that's why we focused on that and we
But isn't
did.
that in the
request
further
to-
back though? Isn't it further back in that area though? The
Patriot
request
Park
that
is
you
here.
have?
The request we had was up in
Can you circle that
here.
area?
Can you circle the area for
I
us?
cannot in the Google,
And the request was to leave the ETJ, right?
that is correct.
Okay.
We've had one or two owners say we'd like to be pulled out of the ETJ.
Like I said, I have no issue with what you're presenting. I just want to make sure that we're cutting it appropriately.
and I think one of the areas we're talking, see where there's been active digging
Uh-huh.
in the left
Right.
corner,
Right.
right there where you drop that pin?
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's way
That's
back.
that's one of the areas we're talking about removing.
I have no problem with that.
And so it's from there down to kind of the back portion behind White Oak High School.
Where those
And right
blank parcels are?
Yes,
where the old airstrip was behind the high school.
yes. But that is not part of Patriot Park. And I'm not sure that the school system doesn't own it.
I believe the school does own that piece where the old airstrip was.
I don't know.
How about if we do this?
I have
How
no
about if
problem.
we agree that, first of all, our apology that we don't have more properly scaled maps. What we're looking for is the general direction. Are you comfortable with us reducing the ETJ for the reasons that were given? If you are, then what we will do, because it's a long process, it's not something that tonight you're gonna vote and tomorrow morning it's not gonna be in. What we'll do is provide detailed maps at another workshop that shows you exactly all of the parcel lines.
I have no problem with that.
Right.
The only issue that I have is around that Patriot Park and Food Line area. Other than that, I'm fine.
Me too.
But if
We'd-
it's a
and we'd
school,
like
it's
to
not
hang-
gonna matter anyway.
Yeah, and we'd like to hang on to the Gum Branch corridor there out to Summerskill School Road, just.
I would like to ask Brian if he would talk about from a fire inspection standpoint. Brian?
Sure. So currently in the area that you recommended, it's not a huge workload. We have around 29 activities that we do over a 3-year period. When we say annual inspections, it's actually probably more appropriate to say periodic. Some of those we only inspect every 3 years, some we inspect every 2 years, and some we inspect annually. If you can bear with the process, we charge $75 regardless of the inspection type or the inspection frequency for those. So some of those citizens are getting that fee every year, some are getting that every 2 years, and some are getting that every 3 years. The current way that the fee schedule that you adopted was that if they are not compliant, meaning we have to go back, there is no fee if when we get there, they have corrected all the issues. If they are not compliant, they pay the same fee as anyone else that's non-compliant. That's $150. As you proposed here, at $75, as Dr. Woodruff mentioned earlier, we're pretty much losing money. When we look at those 29 activities, it only yields about $44, if you will. So that $75 was approximately what we feel like it would cost to provide that service. But in return, because we're going back and people are in compliance and we're not charging that fee to go back, it causes that price per activity, if you will, to be reduced to around 44. So we're almost losing a third of our average there. So yes, that's kind of the way it goes. And obviously, as the alternate, we won't spend time talking about that, but there was a significant loss there. This is minuscule amount of money in our revenue line. It's only approximately $1,275 over 3 years. So when we look at that, obviously we're spending way more time, way more energy than what it yields. But regarding that, these codes are unlike zoning. It's a state mandated code. So no matter who's enforcing it, it is the code. So it would be required the same whether we enforced it, the city enforced it, it really wouldn't matter. I think that's probably an appropriate level of discussion.
Yeah, but the fire codes, the North Carolina fire code, so what Brian's getting at is it doesn't matter if it's the city inspectors or the county inspectors, the code is the same, unlike our zoning being totally different than every other municipality and county in the state.
How many parcels was this? You said that we were 2,200 and about 2,700. How many parcels is
So-
this for the large ones?
This proposed reduction is 338 parcels and 947 acres.
So it's more acreage than it is parcel.
Yeah, just because it's large tract.
Two other comments that I would make. Once again, I know that it appears that you're interested in keeping the corridor at Gum Branch. But I would remind you that when the city shows up in developed property and the people don't appreciate us being there, they don't. I mean, the bottom line is they are there to provide safety, especially the fire department inspections. But when something is found to be not in compliance, the word we always hear is, well, I don't even understand why you folks are out here. I'm not part of the city. I don't want to ever be part of the city. There's, as the old saying goes, there are two sides to every blade. And one of the things that I've always believed is that when you're giving away services and people don't appreciate it, you have to ask yourself the question, why am I giving away the service? What I've said to you before is this: city taxpayers pay taxes for a reason. Why should we give those same quality services to somebody who doesn't appreciate it? Now, I know we have a $75 charge. Just the same, people don't appreciate it. I will tell you that down on the green area on the very left-hand side, Ryan, if you would cover that, one of the reasons why we want to keep.
I covered it all right.
You did, good job.
Poof.
But one of the reasons why we want to keep that is because in the MPO DOT plans, remember there's going to be a major interchange there at the New River Air Station. That means a substantial amount of that property is going to be redeveloped.
Yeah.
And we want to be part of the redevelopment. They may not ever actually annex into the city, but because it's right at the base entrance, we want to be the ones who really have control in that area.
Totally agree
But
with that.
we also have the sewer lift station in the southwest area, so
Correct.
we think that there's a good probability that they will annex.
What does the county fire marshal charge for those same services?
It's handled through their building inspections department, and sir, I would be ill-missed to give you that figure. I think they mirror something similar to it. And again, this is an approximate estimate. I think it's around 50, if my memory serves me correct, or nothing.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we will find out though.
Just curious.
Yes, sir. And if I may, just that Gum Branch, to speak to Dr. Woodruff's statement, removing that almost doubles the number of activities. So we had 29, we did 62 activities just in that Gum Branch corridor.
And there's really, there's no benefit to us that we're providing that. You said the county would provide it otherwise.
That's
And there's
correct.
real no benefit to the establishments. They're gonna get it done one way or the other.
We
So it's
follow
hard to
the,
find a benefit for that corridor, except for.
Well, it's
maybe
for building,
supposedly
it's
to-
for zoning
Well,
and
Well, zoning,
protecting
but
the
all you're gonna
corridor
have
more
is.
than the service.
Right, but you're not gonna, you have just your design standards you can impose. So-
It's a
Well,
game.
it's no different than what Richard just alluded to on the air station side. It's having the input.
The air station, they said there's potential for,
Yeah,
there's
it's-
gonna be definitely redevelopment
So
there. Richard.
Gum Branch gonna continue to develop.
There's,
Yeah, there's some, but they're not gonna annex in, so there's really gonna be, I guess it's a visual benefit you're looking for.
yes,
Right.
that's probably one of the primary, it is a gateway in, it would be visual. There is one thing, and I want to personally apologize for not having the close-up maps, and we'll get those to you. But one of the things, if I had a close-up map to show you on the Gum Branch, since we're talking about that corridor, this is the primary where we've got basically 2 or 3 blocks that are basically split subdivision, where part of the frontage of the subdivision is in our jurisdiction and the whole back part of the subdivision for single family is outside. Now, in order to keep that corridor and not have jumping jurisdictions, we just followed that street boundary. But you'll see that with the map, and that may be something where once you get those close-up maps, that council may decide to kind of go in a different direction. But we'll get those to you. We'll try to get those to you by email very quickly. And then we can have another dialogue and another workshop or council meeting to just kind of refine our direction on especially as it relates to the Piney Green area nearest White Oak and the Food Line Shopping Center and also the Gum Ranch corridor.
I do want to commend the staff. There's a lot of effort that went in, as was mentioned, fire department, code enforcement, Wally in the utilities area, and I think Ryan and Jeremy did an excellent job. We will follow up.
And MPO as well.
And the MPO. So we need to give MPO credit for this?
Unfortunately.
Any other questions on this?
Good job. Thank you, guys.
Could we take a 5-minute break and then go into closed session, or you want to go into closed session
And
first?
we can eat in closed session.
Yes, we're good.
So we go ahead and, entertain a motion.
Motion to go into closed session?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.